Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text 14, chapters entitled Description of the Kingdom of God.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 14. In the Vaikuntha planets, all the residents are similar in form to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They all engage in devotional service to the Lord without desires for sense gratification. Purport. The residence and the form of living in Vaikuntha are described in this verse. The residents are all like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan. In the Vaikuntha planets, Krishna's plenary feature as four-handed Narayan is the predominating deity, and the residents of Vaikuntha Loka are also four-handed, just contrary to our conception here in the material world. Nowhere in the material world do we find a human being with four hands. In Vaikuntha Loka there is no occupation but the service of the Lord, and this service is not rendered with a purpose. Although every service has a particular result, the devotees never aspire for the fulfillment of their own desires. Their desires are fulfilled by rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord.
So in Vaikuntha Loka there is no occupation but the service of the Lord. Basically that means there isn't anything else to do but serve the Lord. And this service is not rendered with a purpose, which when you read that sentence it sounds very strange, but basically what it means is not rendered with a purpose. It means it's not rendered with selfish motivation. It's only rendered for the purpose. It is rendered with a purpose, I would dare say. It's rendered with the purpose of serving the Lord, but not rendered with a purpose, personally motivated purpose. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, like we're learning to serve the Lord presently, everyone in whatever capacity, but there's still that, like it says here, the devotees never aspire for the fulfillment of their own desires. So there's still that, whether it's on a gross or subtle level, some sort of pleasure from the service for what it gives us. You know, it makes whatever name, fame, position, what I can get out of it, side benefits of doing the service or whatever. So my understanding is here, so we're all doing the same thing, but we're still trying to work through the different levels of purification and detachment, so where we get to still doing the same thing, but it's for the pleasure, transcendental loving service, pleasure of the Lord, as opposed to any tinges of for ourselves like that.
And of course all the residents of Vaikuntha, they have four-arm forms, so like that.
Okay.
15. In the Vaikuntha planets is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the original person, who can be understood through the Vedic literature. He is full of the uncontaminated mode of goodness, with no place for passion or ignorance. He contributes religious progress for the devotees. Purport. The kingdom of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual sky cannot be understood by any process other than hearing from the description of the Vedas. No one can go see it in this material world. Also, one who is unable to pay to go to a far distant place by motorized conveyances can only understand about that place from authentic books. Similarly, the Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky are beyond this material sky. The modern scientists who are trying to travel in space are having difficulty going even to the nearest planet, the moon, to say nothing of the highest planets within the universe. There is no possibility that they can go beyond the material sky, enter the spiritual sky, and see for themselves the spiritual planets Vaikuntha. Therefore, the kingdom of God in the spiritual sky can be understood only through the authentic descriptions of the Vedas and Puranas. You can read paragraph, right?
Oh, I thought you might have a comment.
No, not particularly. Just it's a nice analogy. Just that, just if you can't afford to go somewhere. Of course, Prabhupada wrote this in a time when primarily it was about books. But if people can't go to a specific place, let's say, you can't afford to go to Venice, or you can't afford to go to Paris or Rome or someplace like that, then you can read the book about it, or you can watch it on TV, you can watch a documentary, so you can figure out, but there has to be some sort of authoritative representation of that place for you to understand it. So for us, it seems like the descriptions from the Vedas and the Puranas, that's the authoritative way to understand Vaikuntha. What is Vaikuntha, where it is, and how to achieve it ultimately. But not by some motorized conveyances, as Prabhupada says.
Yeah. In the material world, there are three modes of material qualities: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But in the spiritual world, there is no trace of the modes of passion and ignorance. There is only the mode of goodness, which is uncontaminated by any tinge of ignorance or passion. In the material world, even if a person is completely in goodness, he is sometimes subject to be polluted by tinges of the modes of ignorance and passion. But in the Vaikuntha world, the spiritual sky, only the mode of goodness in its pure form exists. The Lord and his devotees reside in the Vaikuntha planets, and they are of the same transcendental quality, namely Shuddha Sattva, the mode of pure goodness. The Vaikuntha planets are very dear to the Vaishnavas, and for the progressive march of the Vaishnavas toward the kingdom of God, the Lord himself helps his devotees.
So, thoughts?
Everyone's pure in the Vaikuntha planet.
Yeah, you don't get back into the spiritual world without being pure. So like that, Shuddha Sattva. And the last line, the Vaikuntha planets are very dear to the Vaishnavas, and for the progressive march of the Vaishnavas toward the kingdom of God, the Lord himself helps his devotees. So the Lord himself is trying to assist us and help us to get back to the spiritual world. So like that.
Yeah.
Text 16. Translation. In those Vaikuntha planets, there are many forests which are very auspicious. In those forests, the trees are desire trees, and in all seasons they are filled with flowers and fruits, because everything in the Vaikuntha planets is spiritual and personal. Interesting. So, yeah, we don't often hear or think about this. I mean, in Goloka we know that there are desire trees, but this is saying in the other Vaikuntha planets. In the Vaikuntha planets, the land, the trees, the fruits and flowers, and the cows, everything is completely spiritual and personal. The trees are desire trees. On this material planet, the trees can produce fruits and flowers according to the order of material energy. But in the Vaikuntha planets, the trees, the land, the residents, and the animals are all spiritual. There is no difference between the tree and the animal, or the animal and the man. Here the word murtimat indicates that everything has a spiritual form. Formlessness, as conceived by the impersonalists, is refuted in this verse. In the Vaikuntha planets, although everything is spiritual, everything has a particular form. The trees and the men have form, and because all of them, although differently formed, are spiritual, there is no difference between them. Now that's an interesting thing, that it starts to sound a little bit like it's all one. There's no difference between them. Obviously there's there's no qualitative distinction, but I guess not. Yeah, like the essence of who they are is not different. They're purely spiritual, but in one sense, there's obviously distinction. And Prabhupada says that formlessness, as conceived by the impersonalists, is refuted in this verse, because it's saying that everything, although it is spiritual, everything has a particular form. So although things are non-different from one another, but still they have their individual identity and distinct form, like that.
Text 17.
17. Is that right? Oh, yeah.
In the Vaikuntha planets, the inhabitants fly in their airplanes, accompanied by their wives and consorts, and eternally sing of the character and activities of the Lord, which are always devoid of all inauspicious qualities. While singing the glories of the Lord, they deride even the presence of the blossoming Madhavi flowers, which are fragrant and laden with honey. Purport. It appears from this verse that the Vaikuntha planets are full of all opulences. They are airplanes in which the inhabitants travel in the spiritual sky with their sweethearts. There is a breeze carrying the fragrance of blossoming flowers, and this breeze is so nice that it also carries the honey of the flowers. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha, however, are so interested in glorifying the Lord that they do not like the disturbance of such a nice breeze while they are chanting the Lord's glories. In other words, they are pure devotees. They consider glorification of the Lord more important than their own sense gratification. In the Vaikuntha planets, there is no question of sense gratification. To smell the fragrance of a blossoming flower is certainly very nice, but it is simply for sense gratification. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha give first preference to the service of the Lord, not their own sense gratification. Serving the Lord in transcendental love yields such transcendental pleasure that in comparison sense gratification is counted as insignificant. But if the flower is offered to Krishna, then you can smell it and enjoy it. No?
Yeah. But why did you say that?
Because I was just thinking here where the line where it says to smell the fragrance of a blossoming flower is certainly very nice, but it is simply for sense gratification. I was just thinking sometimes in the class in the temple when they're doing the arati and then they pass around the flower. If it's a real rose, like a garden rose, they smell nice. Nothing else smells, which is true. I just touch it to my head and pass it on because there's nothing to smell. But a garden rose does. I like garden, you know.
Yeah, it has a specific fragrance. But your point being that once it's been offered to the Lord, then you can smell it.
Yeah.
But I guess still, unless you're smelling with the consciousness of, thinking that this has been offered to Krishna's lotus feet, and Krishna has created the aroma of this rose, and you have to be conscious.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can just be sniffing it for your own pleasure, right? So, still, even if it's the Lord's prasad, we can still be enjoying that prasad without having a mood of service. So, just like, Mahaprasad in the form of eatables offered to the Lord. And you can just stuff it in your face and not really have
take what you
a
like.
consciousness of that this is service, this is food that's been offered to the Lord, and the Lord's saliva is there, so like that.
Yeah, it's true. Although one time when I was new coming to the temple, all the maha was gone. I didn't realise that was a rites of passage and tradition at the temple, but anyway, I was surprised when the trays came down. It was just a green chutney, me and my brother in the queue. Oh, okay. And then the devotee served out. So, where's maha in it? What's your problem? It's maha, and he served us a plate of green chutney. We were sitting there to eat with a spoon, this chutney. Oh dear. Then we felt bad that we didn't have the consciousness, or like, oh my God, I'm eating maha. We were like, where's the rest of it? Well, we did eat
Where's
it.
the pakoras? Where's the simji?
Yeah, we ate it though.
Text 18. When the king of bees hums in a high pitch, singing the glories of the Lord, There is a temporary lull in the noise of the pigeon, the cuckoo, the crane, the chakravaka, the swan, the parrot, the partridge, and the peacock. Such transcendental birds stop their own singing simply to hear the glories of the Lord. Purport. This verse reveals the absolute nature of Vaikuntha. There is no difference between the birds there and the human residents. The situation in the spiritual sky is that everything is spiritual and variegated. Spiritual variegatedness means that everything is animate. There is nothing inanimate. Even the trees, the ground, the plants, the flowers, the birds, and the beasts are all on the level of Krishna consciousness. The special feature of Vaikuntha Loka is that there is no question of sense gratification. In the material world, even an ass enjoys his sound vibration. But in the Vaikunthas, such nice birds as the peacock and the chakravaka and the cuckoo prefer to hear the vibration of the glories of the Lord from the bees. The principles of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting, are very prominent in the Vaikuntha world. So even the animals are interested in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord because they're all on the spiritual platform. And instead of listening to their own voices, if someone begins to speak the glories of the Lord, like the bees begin to sing the glories of the Lord, bzz, bzz, then all the other birds stop just to listen. Powerful.
Text 19. Although flowering plants like the mandara, kunda, kurabaka, utpala, champaka, arna, punaga, nagakeshara, bakula, lily, lily amongst all that, parijata are full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by Tulasi. For Tulasi is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with Tulasi leaves. Purport. The importance of Tulasi leaves is very clearly mentioned here. Tulasi plants and their leaves are very important in devotional service. Devotees are recommended to water the Tulasi tree every day and collect the leaves to worship the Lord. One time an atheistic Swami remarked, "What is the use of watering the Tulasi plant? It is better to water eggplant." By watering the eggplant, one can get some fruits. But what is the use of watering the Tulasi? These foolish creatures, unacquainted with devotional service, sometimes play havoc with the education of people in general. Prabhupada so harsh. These foolish creatures. You going to read the next?
Yeah, I'll read.
Okay. So, I do just while he's typing. Eggplant is very nice, mind you, but obviously you don't worship it in place of Tulsi or whatever, but side point. Fried eggplant sabji is good, if you make it properly.
Okay, so we'll stop after this one.
Alright.
Oh no, we got the last, did you read the last paragraph?
No, that's what I was waiting.
Okay. The most important thing about the spiritual world is that there is no envy among the devotees there. This is true even among the flowers, which are all conscious of the greatness of Tulasi. In the Vaikuntha world, entered by the 4 Kumaras, even the birds and flowers are conscious of service to the Lord. So you can see that with this kind of mood, you can understand why this is the spirit of Vaikuntha. There is no envy, there is no ill regard for anyone else. So when the 4 Kumaras try to enter Vaikuntha and they're stopped by Jai and Vijay, then they exclaim that this isn't the mood of Vaikuntha. You two are envious, you two are exhibiting some pride and envy, and therefore you're not really worthy residents of Vaikuntha. So I think that's pastime will come up. Like that. Okay.
But this is leading to that, because remember the demigods are saying, what's going on? Why is it all so dark?
Yeah, it's all, why is it all so dark? Yeah, why is it all so dark? So it's, and it's all dark because the two brothers have been
They take him
born. And
so this is leading to that, because the next chapter talks about the Vijaya Vijaya curse. In fact, it's entitled Jaya and Vijaya curse.
Oh, that's the next chapter, yeah?
Jaya and Vijaya cursed by the sages. So we already read all this, but now because the demigods don't know what's going on, they've gone to Lord Brahma, so now it's like a transcendental recap.
Well, no, we didn't read it. All we read about is, we read about the pregnancy of Diti in the evening. So we saw a particular aspect of the pastime where Kashyapa and Diti, Diti became lusty, and kind of Kashyapa succumbed, and then because of that, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were born. But we haven't read, at least yet, see, because it's not in chronological order. And so then what happens is, it will be explained where Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha came from and why they were born.
And why it's all dark and the demigods are freaking out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for
tuning in.
Yes, I understand. Danishta Devi Dasi also tunes in. We just visited her the other day. She's letting me know. So Hare Krishna, Danishta.
Hare Krishna. Nice to see you. And please read Srimad Bhagavatam and chant the glories of the Lord, and your life can become like Vaikuntha, and you can become like a Vaikuntha Vasi. Although, of course, we're shooting a little bit higher than Vaikuntha with Goloka, but still it's the Vaikuntha planets, the Vaikuntha realm in general.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.